when people are like, well, I have to accept that right now, this is difficult. When people say I have to accept it, what they hear is I have to accept it forever. I have to accept that this is my reality forever. No, you don't. You have to accept that this is your reality right now, today, this week, this month, right? Like, so if I just had a knee replacement, I don't have to accept that these limitations are forever. I have to accept that it's a reality right now. So if I'm planning a trip this weekend, well, the brain goes, well, I don't want to be limited by it. And I don't want to accept it because that feels awful. If I make accommodations, if I make changes, you're not accepting a forever reality, but you have to be able to accept that it's a right now reality.
Welcome to Cut the Crap with Beth and Matt, the world's #1 no bullshit health and fitness podcast.
Are you ready to cut the crap with your diet and exercise, get strong as fuck, and build a healthy relationship with food? Then you've come to the right place.
Let's go. If you'd like to support us in the podcast, join our Patreon where you get exclusive content, which consists of monthly workouts you can do at home or at the gym, monthly challenges that are either strength, habit, or mindset based, and access to over 100 plus low-calorie, high-protein, family-friendly meals. These are all designed by a professional chef who is certified in nutrition. These recipes are already in MyFitnessPal for easy fucking tracking. New recipes are also added each week.
We believe that fitness is for everyone, so this is our way of getting you started on your health and fitness journey at a price most everyone can afford. So what the fuck are you waiting for? We'll see you in the Patreon.
How are ya?
Hey Josh.
Not bad. How are you guys doing?
Awesome, man. Pumped to talk to you today. It's been a while.
Yeah, I know.
It's been a while. How are you guys doing?
Fucking awesome, man.
Doing
Lately,
really
at least.
good. Yeah, things are good. I just finished my first ever speaking event.
Congratulations. How'd you feel it went? Did it go how you were hoping?
It went better than I expected.
I mean, the comments looked spectacular.
I was impressed with myself, I guess you should say.
I saw it firsthand.
I mean,
She fucking
yeah. Thanks, Matt. I had
That's
so much
awesome.
anxiety up into I was like crying right before. Like Iris was like doing some tapping shit on my hands. Yeah, Hunter videotaped it. But yeah, I had a complete breakdown, but it went well. Yeah, I not only had to do it once, I did it twice.
Yeah.
And was the second round a little bit less initial stress?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hopefully once you got up there and you got going and you kind of see that your crowd is like, they're there for you, right? They're all rooting for you. They're with you. They love it. They want the information. And once you see that, I feel like hopefully it clicks in a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
What's funny is the first time she gave the talk, the presentation, she was in the big room. So I'm sure that was very nerve wracking, right?
Oh my God,
that was fucking... you were in the smaller room.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Let's start you off big.
Listen,
go big or go
big
home.
Or go home.
But it was awesome to see Beth in her element there, and like just like the feedback she was getting from everybody too. I mean,
yeah,
I'm so excited to see her, and
I know that made me feel
it's
good.
like a fucking rock show, honestly. Like you're a rock star, Beth.
Oh, I know. Thanks. Oh, geez.
That's all. I mean, literally every comment that I saw that people put up said that it was. I mean, even the people who went there expecting you to crush it put stuff up that was just like, okay, wow, that like blew me, and that's amazing. It's got to feel.
I love that. Yeah.
Rockstar.
It does.
Congrats.
Yeah.
That's like,
thanks.
And I love that you're able to just kind of say, yeah, I feel like really good about how I did. That's awesome. That's like, you want to be able to say,
something we tend to do, right? Is minimize the what we've done, the accomplishments.
Yeah. It's almost like I don't want to
not minimize,
talk
but
about it, even though it's such a big deal to me. It's like, I should be proud of myself, but why is it so hard for us to be proud of ourselves, Dr. Josh? Let's just start off with a bang.
Actually, should we reintroduce Josh to the audience?
Yeah. So everyone, this is Joshua Smith, and I'll let you go and let us know what else.
Is there anything else? I mean, it's just like, yeah, I'm Josh. It's good.
Yeah, it's just Josh. You're just Josh.
Though I will say, the second you said this is Josh, I almost waved, and I'm like, God, when will I get that out of my system?
We're talking about using full episodes. Actually, oops, I just let the cat out of the bag. But so wave if you want.
No, I mean, listen, my name is Josh. I don't know what else people would want to know. I'm a psychologist.
There we go. That's what we need.
Clinical psychologist. I do a bunch of different things. Right now, I have a private practice doing kind of more individual couples, family type work. And then I spend some of my time in a pain clinic as a pain psychologist. And I've done a whole bunch of different stuff over my career, anywhere from working with the criminally insane to doing a lot of trauma work, outpatient work. It runs the gamut, as it sometimes does when you have ADHD. But yeah, so that's me. That's
Awesome.
me in a nutshell.
And I feel like that's what we're here to talk about today, probably some ADHD related stuff, because we've been talking about that a lot lately. But in the first time you were here, we did talk about chronic pain and things like that, right? That was a great episode. You dropped us with some fucking awesome analogies. And
yes, the battery and stuff is my favorite.
Charging your batteries, walking the dog. I love those analogies. I still use them to this day, man.
Oh man, I am full of analogies and metaphors, and it's funny.
That's the right word, metaphor.
Yeah. Oh, well, both. I mean, but you know, and even in prep for this, the funny thing is even how this all kind of came down, right? Like I was half joking and I was in the car and I was frustrated with my own, how my own ADHD presents sometimes. And I made like a 2-second video basically talking about like basic things. Like, I think the 2 that I presented was that I hate going to sleep at night. I like actively avoid it.
I love that video, the procrastination.
And and like, so I avoid going to sleep, but I love sleep and I don't ever want to get out of bed in the morning. And so it's this internal, like, what is wrong? That every night I go to bed and I'm like, I'm going to be so happy when I go to bed. And yet I'm like, I'll do one more thing. I'll do what.
Yes.
And then I put in the same thing about like taking a shower. Like I avoid getting in the shower and then I don't ever want to get out of the shower. And so Beth had messaged back and forth. And then she had told me, Matt, that you were actually in the process of maybe
I actually finally got in with a psychiatrist 2 weeks, like a week after I get back from Florida. So I got a referral. Things are in motion and I'm really fucking pumped.
Nice. I still haven't gotten to that point yet. Why is it so hard for me?
Oh my God, it's very hard. It's very hard.
It's so hard because I think that, I don't know, my personal view is that for at least us and for most of us, when we talk about almost anything like ADHD or even spectrum disorders, for a long time, we only really talk about like the top third of that diagnosis, the people that are in that kind of higher category where it's really impacting learning. And what we're now learning is like, right, that spectrum is a lot bigger than we thought. And so we were really mainly focused on that top tier and not the second tier or that kind of third tier where you can function.
Right.
I didn't get diagnosed until I was in my early 30s. And it was, well, I'll tell you the story because it's a little funny, but like I was working full time. So I had finished grad school. So I went all the way through college, my master's, my doctorate. And it was like pretty well known. I didn't go to a grad class without silly putty because I couldn't sit. And I could, if I did Sudoku or if I did a crossword puzzle, I hear nothing. I could do that and it will help me pass the time, but then I wouldn't hear the professor at all. So like all my classmates, they all knew, like I had silly putty everywhere. Like, and I would bring it with me because it was like a primary, and I was working full time. We had our first kid. She was under 1 year old and I was studying for my licensing exam and I had to book specific times to study. And I would sit down and be like, nope. Like my brain was just like, you're not doing this today. And I was really struggling and I never wanted to be that person that was like, maybe I'll just try some medication. So I was like, I'll do it the right way. And I got in touch with my primary and I went in, and I'll have to figure out a way to share it with anybody listening. But my doctor gave me this ADHD self-report scale or tool. It's not an assessment. It says right on it, this is just meant to be a conversation starter with your doctor.
Okay.
It's only like, I think it's like 18 questions and I'm filling it out. And they're all kind of like, I think it's on a scale of like 1 to 5, like never to very often. And there were a few questions on there that just cracked me up, right? So like, I think the first question said something about like, how often do you struggle to finish the very last details or last part of a project when you've already done the hardest parts? You've got 90-something% of it done. How often do you have trouble wrapping up that last little bit? And I remember reading it being like, okay, I guess we're going to start out of the gate with kind of a like, I feel totally called out, fuck you. And that's going to be a big old 5. Like, I was like, and then like I go through and there was another one that said something about like, do you find yourself at work talking to people when you know they have work to get done and you should stop, but you can't stop the conversation? And I'm like, that's so weirdly specific. And another 5.
Mm-hmm.
And I go in to talk to my doctor and he's looking at it and he's like, Josh. And meanwhile, I'm working at this phase at a psychologist. I'm having conversations with people about medication resistance and stress around this decision making. And here I am. And he was like, Josh, did this never occur to you? And I was like, of course it did. But I made it through high school and college and grad school. And I was able to figure out ways.
Yeah.
So in my mind, it didn't count. It couldn't have met the level of needing
high
help
functioning
or assistance.
Right.
And I even told him about the silly putty. And he said to me, he was like, well, when did you write your dissertation? And I said, well, I did the majority of the writing between like 11 p.m. and 4 a.m. And he was like, well, why? And I said, sometimes I cannot focus unless the world is quiet. And he went, Josh. And I was like, oh, I hear it. I hear it. Like, and so decided to try medication. The first time I went to work, like the next day with the meds, and I was sitting in a meeting, and I'm sitting in a meeting. It's boring, but I was like, huh, this is what meetings are like for normal people. I'm bored out of my mind, but I can sit here like
and focus.
I used to sit in that meeting and I'd be like, there's my boss. There's my boss's boss. There's the area director. Right. And I'd be like, don't take your phone out of your pocket. And I'd be like, don't do it. And then I'd be like a little bit in and I'd be like, you know what? I'll check my work email. That's legit. And then before you know it, I'm like playing some sort of game on my phone and I'm like, who's in charge? Like, who is running it? Like, it was bizarre because the first time I was like, oh, it doesn't eliminate all of the hurdles to get going on something, but it just made it a little easier. I still have to use a lot of those strategies to actually get motivated or get like, but it was just one of those funny moments. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a crazy story like that where like it all clicks, huh?
Well, it's also, I think that this is the nice part of, there's so much more information out there. And sometimes sometimes that can be a detriment.
Curse and a blessing.
Right, exactly. But now that we see that people are talking more about that full spectrum, it's hilarious because even when I put up that video, it cracked me up. The number of people who reached out and said, hey, what? That's not just me. Like I do that all the time. And that's why I put up another video where I was talking about that I forget to eat. And somebody was like, hey, for real, like, yeah, it's not that I'm like making an active choice. It's not that, it's almost like when I get over focused or if I am overstimulated or my body just doesn't give me that signal. So I will be completely invested in something. And then all of a sudden I'll be like, I have a headache, or I'm like, why am I feeling like a little bit, or I'll start to feel hungry. And I'm like, what time is it? And sometimes my wife will come home and she'll be like, what'd you have for lunch? And I have to pause and think. And I'm like, I don't think I ate lunch. And she was like, what do you mean you don't think? And I'm like, I remember opening the fridge multiple times. And I'm like, but I don't think I ate something. And I'm like, oh, right. Cause then the dog wanted, like, so I took the dog for a walk, but then I took a phone call. And then there are times I'll take something out and just leave it on the counter. You know, I'm like, well, there it is. Apparently I didn't eat that yogurt. I took it out.
Josh, you're blowing my mind right now because I feel like you're talking like that's me telling me my story right now because I left yogurt out the other night. I wanted it for a snack and I went back a couple of hours and it's still sitting there on the counter.
Well, this is why, like, you should see, I wrote down a bunch of stuff because I had for one, right? In my mind, I was like, the three of us together talking about this, we're going to bounce all over the place.
We need to focus.
we need a safe way to get us back on track.
But even my notes got out of hand. I was like, okay, like, I'm like, why did this one end up over here? Like, what happened? I was like, oh crap, I forgot that. And like, I'm like, oh my God. And that's when I was like, forget the list. Like, I was like, it's just I think that some of the info that's out there, you're seeing more people talking about some of the nuance. And when you hear somebody you've never met talking about something and you're like, oh, weird, that describes me. For me, I think it gives you a little bit more permission.
Yeah.
Almost to be like, oh, maybe it's not just me. So like the food thing, I got a lot of response to.
Yeah.
I was joking about how frequently I go up and down stairs, and then I'm like, man, I don't know why I'm here. Like I will like kind of bound up the stairs, and I'm like, I had a very clear, I need to go get something.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, in that amount of time, I'll get up or I'll
and
see
I never
something
realized
else.
that was like ADHD symptom or a sign of it or whatever you want to call it. I just forgetfulness, right?
Right.
Like,
you just assume it's you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my like when people talk to me about like, oh, well, how do you get diagnosed with ADHD? And I'm like, well, for one, with adults, you don't need to go through testing. Like it's not a lot of the reason people will do neuropsych testing when they're younger is because you need some sort of accommodation. You need school to do something. You need more time. You need more. Once you hit adulthood, there's no real reason. So nobody's going to kind of just say, hey, we've noticed this. Let's do some testing.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you how
why
somebody
it's so
can go about
hard.
getting tested.
I was going to say, because it's something that I know I have some form of something, and it will validate exactly why I've done certain things my entire life. Like also like high anxiety, being an alcoholic, never being able to read a book or finish a book ever, always doing every school project I've ever done was done like the night before. Literally everything that I have to do, I have to have a specific end date or I will not fucking do it. Like I had to manipulate my own self for my speaking event because I would not have done my slides if I didn't actually email my speaking coach was like, yeah, I finished my slides. We can go over them now, but I didn't have them done. But I had to make an appointment with her or else I wouldn't have done it. Like, what the fuck?
It's because that's why, like, when you were saying that it was stressful, I almost was going to ask you. I was going to ask you, I was like, well, when did you finish your slides? Because there is a resistance, like an immediate resistance to, and I think most presentations I've done, it's that same thing. I would say if I have slides due, if I have to turn it in advance, I likely will. There's going to be the actual day of the presentation, I will have changed things. Like that won't be the final draft. Like I remember I was presenting at a conference and they said, this is the absolute deadline. You have to get it in by. And I was like, great. And they said, but just so you know, you can always edit it later. We just want something available.
You're like, oh,
worst
okay, perfect
thing anybody could ever tell me.
Right.
Like worst. And I'm like, why would you say that? Like, you just, and by the way, I'm just realizing, like, as we're talking, like various things that are self-testing, like, what does your desk look like? Right. Like I am right now playing with a wall anchor and a screw. I literally will just, now
I'm playing with the drawstring on my sweatpants.
How did this end up in my office? I'm not even clear. I remember I hung something recently, took a bunch of them out, didn't put them away, almost put them away. I brought them to the basement. I brought them and I was 5 feet from where they go. And what do? I put them on top of the washing machine. No idea why. Like 4 extra steps and I could put it away. But now every time I go into the laundry, there it is. I picked one up and now it's been on my desk. I mean, and I have actual fidgets. I have a spinner. I have this thing that came out of the laundry at some point in time. And it's like just another little fidget I've covered. And for anybody, if you do end up showing this, like this was, I recently had to sit through a meeting and these are about 6 different paper clips that I basically tied into a knot systematically over like 3 hours. Like,
wow.
I got to a point where I was like, I'm out of paper clips, where I was like saying to people at the conference, I'm like, hey, you going to use your paper clip?
Y'all get any more of them paper clips?
Like, people are like, what do you mean am I going to use my paper clip? I don't like, for what? Like,
that's some art there.
Yeah. So the deadline thing is amazing because with ADHD, you can't bullshit yourself. And so if you don't have a real deadline, like a true deadline, you can't set false deadlines. Some people have that ability. I remember in college, I had a class where they said there was a huge part of our grade was this final paper. And the professor said, you can do it whenever you want. So if you do it now and turn it in,
tell me that.
you can like finish that grade. And now like the last third of the course, like you're good. Me and a friend of mine were like, we're going to do it before Thanksgiving break. Like, it's going to be amazing. Not even close. Right. It's like the few days before Thanksgiving break. And I were like the Friday before. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to do it tonight. Okay. And then I'm like, there's something going on. I'll do it Saturday. And it's like, well, it's the last weekend before everybody's going home. I don't want to miss that. So like, I'll do it tonight. Nope. And then I'll just, my whole Sunday. Nope. Sunday, because I know it's not due. And then I was like, you know what am I doing? I'll just do it during break. No, I won't. My friend finished it and was like, did you write yours? And I'm like, no. I mean, I have a title page. I've started to like format it. I've made a works cited page. I've written a conclusion and nothing else. And I end up doing it the night before it's due at the very end of the semester.
Yeah.
Because real panic, that will motivate.
You will crush it. Yeah. And the thing is, we are thinking about this shit the whole entire time.
Right.
Like, okay, you know what? I will do it tomorrow. Okay, perfect. Tomorrow comes now. I still have enough time. And then you're fucking stressing about it up until the day before. Literally, well, I've lived my life like this. It's exhausting.
Incredibly stressful.
Yeah. And I'm stressing my own self out. Meanwhile, I could be doing it, but I won't.
The way I describe my experience with ADHD, very often the way that I describe it is it's almost like if you go online and you're filling out a form and certain things are like basically blue. You can type into the form, it's like ready. And then everything else is grayed out. You can't click on it until you get that first one done. For me, I feel like mentally I have a massive to-do list that I'm aware of at all times. Some things are grayed out, meaning I can't do them. Some things are blue. They're available. Difference is I don't feel like I'm in charge of what's blue and what's gray. So very often, right, if I had slides to do, if I had a big presentation coming up and that's really stressing me out, it's on my list. It's grayed out. So one morning I'll wake up and be like, my plan is to do that presentation this morning. I look at the list, it's gray. What's blue? I can do laundry. That's no problem. I can mow the lawn. That's not an issue. I could do. So there's a bunch of other things that are blue that are not important, that I don't need to do, that aren't time sensitive. And the problem is very often the only things that make it go gray are either panic, right? So when it's truly due or past due, boom, all of a sudden it'll go blue and it's like, okay, finally. Or a bigger topic coming up, that'll make it go. So if on my list is I have bills to pay and they're gray. And I'm like, yep, I really need to pay those bills, but they're still gray. I try doing all these other tasks in hope that if I check off other things, that will go blue. Now, if all of a sudden I get something in mail, it's like, hey, you gotta get your taxes ready and get that in. Taxes are added now to my to-do list and that will be gray. Now the bills will go blue. And I'm like, okay, great. So now I can pay my bills, but I can't do my tax stuff. And it's infuriating when you feel like, yeah, I have all this stuff I want to do. And I'm just constantly watching my list for when it goes blue. And then I have to jump on it or I miss it. So for me, the reason I even got diagnosed was because I was used to just working my life around that list. So if I had a paper to do and that happened to go blue at 2 a.m., that's when I was going to write that paper. That's when I was going to do that slide deck. That's once I had a full-time job and a kid and I couldn't do that. I couldn't just say, then I guess I'm going to wait until it's available.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating because a lot of it
like
is
a
learning,
system, right? That you had that you probably didn't realize it was a system at first.
Yeah. Oh, I had no idea. I didn't know what I was doing until it wasn't available. And then and so a lot of what I had learned to do before I kind of had a better understanding of it was I had learned all of these strategies for almost recognizing when I was like, listen, that's not getting done tonight. So the best thing that I can do is not stress about it. Because if I sit here in front of the computer all night, stress about it and don't do anything, that's going to make it even worse tomorrow. So I had to learn to be like, it's not available right now. Okay. So I am going to go out and I'm going to have fun and I'm going to enjoy, but I have to truly embrace that to some degree. And then there's a higher likelihood I'll get it done tomorrow. But that's not always the way. So sometimes it was figuring out, how do I make it change? How do I flip? Medication for sure has helped. It makes a bunch of stuff just regularly available that wasn't before. Then I have all my various tactics or tricks or what I call productive procrastination.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing that makes the guilt go away is I'm like, if I can't do what I'm supposed to be doing, I might as well do something that feels productive, something that feels like I'm using my time. So there are times that Laundry is one of my absolute biggest productive procrastination methods. If I have something else to do and I'm like, well, if I do laundry all the way through folding it, now I can just watch TV at the end of the day and I don't feel guilty because I'm at least folding laundry.
Right.
So to talk about the medication, and probably, I don't know how much we want to talk about medication, but how does that medication work like on the brain? Like how does that help you feel normal, right?
Well, I mean, that is in terms of the actual like biochemistry and neuroscience, that's not my expertise area.
Okay,
so I can give you my overview of.
Sure. Yeah.
It really depends. And there are a lot of people that feel differently about when to use medication, when it's necessary. And I would say it's a whole different conversation about when to use it with kids. So I'm going to stay away from that for now because that could take us down a whole different rabbit hole. But what's really fascinating is most of the medications that you're going to look at are stimulants. And if you have ADHD, it doesn't work the way that a stimulant would for somebody who has like what is now referred to as like a neurotypical versus neurodivergent. I know it's like a very buzzword, but for most people, if they were over caffeinated, if they drank too much caffeine, they might actually feel almost hyper. They're going to feel a little bit stirred up, a little bit jittery. For somebody with ADHD, it's actually settling. It's calming, makes them feel a little bit less stir crazy and is going to make it feel like they can focus a little bit more because it's a it's the opposite impact, right? Like, so it's really an interesting thing to see because one of the best ways to test this out really is the medication is in and out of your system in a day. So it's not like you have to take it for 6-8 weeks before you see the benefit.
Okay.
You might take it, and if it's not enough, you're not going to have really much of a benefit or you're not going to feel it. And it's out of your system and if you do short acting, it's out of your system in a matter of hours.
Interesting.
If you do the longer acting, it's still out of your system within that day. So it depends on your provider and their comfort level, but a lot of providers will give you like a screening tool or have a conversation with you. And then we'll say, well, let's try one of the medications and see. If you take it and you go, no, I felt like I was way over caffeinated. I felt jittery. I felt like uncomfortable. Okay, well, then you might have some anxiety. You might have some focus issues. You might have but it's likely not ADHD. If you take it and you say, oh, okay, I actually just felt like it was a little easier.
As a parent, our days are filled with joy, challenges, and countless memories of connection. And let's be real here, more often than not, chaos can feel downright unavoidable. And in those moments, maintaining our peace and well-being are absolutely crucial. And you should know by now that I love talking about all things mindfulness. So this message is for all you mindful parents out there seeking a natural path to tranquility and presence. Cured Nutrition understands the unique stressors we face every day. Whether it's waking up early to take the kids to school or playing taxi as you shuttle everyone from practice to practice, let's not forget that you still have your daily responsibilities with your own career. That's why they created their Serenity Gummies, your go-to ally in managing the complexities of parenthood with ease. These gummies aren't just a treat. They're a blend of science-backed, health-supporting ingredients like full-spectrum cannabinoids, ashwagandha, reishi mushroom, and L-theanine. Each ingredient is chosen for its ability to support your physical, mental, and emotional sense of calm. Now imagine unwinding from the day's hustle with a natural alternative to alcohol, helping you to improve your presence, mindfulness, and overall well-being. Now oftentimes we turn to alcohol as a way to alleviate stress, but take it from someone that has a long look at his relationship with alcohol. That really only makes things worse. The Serenity Gummies offer a more holistic tool to have in your arsenal so that you can feel good about feeling good. I personally enjoy the passion fruit flavor. It's sweet with some kind of an earthy undertone. I'm no expert when it comes to tasting things. I just know what works for me, what tastes good. In addition to that, each gummy is precisely dosed to guide me to my happy place. Now, Cured Nutrition is offering an exclusive 20% off discount just for our listeners when you purchase Serenity Gummies. Visit www.curednutrition.com/CTC and use coupon code CTC at checkout. That's CURED nutrition.com/CTC, coupon code CTC to embrace a state of relaxation and balance. Remember, protecting your peace is just one gummy away. Now take a moment for yourself and find serenity in the midst of life's whirlwind moments. because you as a parent deserve to support your well-being and do something for yourself so you can continue serving others like the badass that you are. Protect your peace and pop a gummy.
I don't have the hyperactivity component. I more have the attention deficit. So for me, if I forget to take my meds in the morning, I will know, because if I start reading an email, I'll read the whole thing, every word. I'll get to the end of it and I'm like, I have no idea what it said. None.
Story.
And I'll be like, oh, okay.
I feel like that's where I'm in alignment with too, is the attention deficit.
Yeah.
Yep. So I'll go back to the beginning and be like, okay, let me focus, pay attention. And this time I'll focus for 4 or 5 words, and then boom, my brain's, and now I am literally reading it. And at the end of it, I'm like, damn it. And so that's where I'll be like, oh, right, I forgot to take my meds. Like, it's like, so that's where I more noticed it it's a little easier to digest information. I don't have to read it as much.
Speaking of reading, and this is like a hack or a system, right? I literally just learned about it about an hour ago when I got over here to my girlfriend's house. Her roommate said, because I was talking about a book that I'm going to read on the plane. I'm going to read No Bad Parts, the book we were talking about with Jimmy earlier. Yeah. They said, can you focus when you're reading on the plane and stuff? I'm like, not really. And they said, well, do you ever try listening to audiobooks? I'm like, yeah, I can't really get into audiobooks either. Like I can do podcasts. I love listening to podcasts. They're like, well, what we do is we read and listen. And it helps us take it all in and helps us focus. I was like,
I've done that.
Does that work for you, Beth?
Yeah. I've done that. Because I would get so mad at myself. Why can't I just read a book? But I can listen. If I listen to audiobook and I read it at the same time, I can absorb it better.
That's what they said too. I'm gonna give that a shot.
That's what we have. My daughter has ADHD, one of the many gifts I gave her. And that's what she does. She will often listen and read along with the book. Because if you think about the focus component, right? Staring at the book and reading.
Yeah.
What's amazing is that the actual act of reading, if you think of it mechanically, right? Like your eyes are going over it, you're registering, you're paying attention. So the problem is just reading, the mind can wander and go elsewhere.
Yeah. You're just listening. Pages later, I'm like, I don't remember any of this. Same with the podcast. I can listen to a podcast. I have to re-listen to a podcast 5 times. And Riker, my son, is like, didn't we just listen to that? I'm like, yeah, but I just need to listen to it again.
Well, my guess, and here's where we can go through like an unofficial, like, and you guys tell me how often I kind of hit something that you're like, oh, that's interesting, right? Like, so, but the reverse can happen where you can get hyper focused. So every once in a while, you might find a book where you're like, I don't know why, but I like read this entire book and like loved it, or I listened to this, but that's rare. It doesn't happen. Like for me with podcasts, I don't think I really got into podcasts until a friend of mine was like, you can change the playback speed. And I was like, say what now? And he was like, oh yeah, I listen to most podcasts on at least 1.2 or 1.5.
Oh yeah.
If they're too slow. Yeah. There was a podcast that had been recommended to me by so many people and I couldn't listen to it because it was too slow. So with pauses, with thinking, with like, I would be out for a walk and like, I'm like, well, if you pause for more than a certain number of seconds, before you know it, I'm like, I will literally be like, what kind of bird is that? I don't think I know what kind of bird that is. Like, should I take a picture of that bird? Like, and then all of a sudden, like, I'll hear a word and I'm like, oh crap, when did I stop listening?
Right.
You know, and
so then you find yourself rewinding like 15 seconds at a time until you remember a part.
Oh, yeah. Right? Yeah. Oh, the rewind and re-listen.
Yeah.
But so the other thing I think is interesting that like are some of my telltale signs, right? One is it is very hard with ADHD to get focused. When you do, it can be intense.
Hyper focused.
Right.
That's been me today. I've been fucking on it today.
Which is an amazing feeling.
Yeah.
But if somebody interrupts you, you will see and experience rage. Like very calm. Like if somebody interrupts you when you are in a period of like real hyper focus, it's infuriating because all of a sudden it's like, do you have any idea how much energy it took for me to get going? Once I'm going, I'm going. But if you interrupt me,
I'm done.
I have to start all over again. Yeah. Getting back into it.
Literally takes the wind out of your sails.
Right. And then, so there are times where it will be all of a sudden, it's like, I might as well just, because I don't want to start the whole process over again of getting myself psyched up. And so we joke around my house of, I would say time blindness, which is basically just the idea or concept that somehow time always seems to move at different paces. So people with ADHD will very often find that they're like, oh, like I have a half an hour before we have to go. That's plenty of time. And then it feels like they sneeze and they're like, I have 4 minutes. And it's like, what happened? Like now I'm running late and I don't know why. The same is true, right? Like if you actually get going and you're early somewhere, a lot of ADHD people will say, I got there early. So I was like, well, I'm not ready to go in yet. So they take their phone out and they're like, somehow I ended up going in 5 minutes late. I got here 20 minutes early and then couldn't pull myself away from this and went inside 3 minutes late, 2 minutes late. And it's like, but I was here 20 minutes ago. Like, why couldn't I just get inside? I don't know about you guys. Name blindness. A lot of people who have certain type
remembering faces but not names, or
right. So I can tell you that I remember faces and I remember details. Names, it's almost infuriating because I will meet somebody, they will introduce themselves, and we're not even done with the handshake. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't listen to your name.
Nope. Every time.
That just rang a bell for me. Yeah.
I have had to teach myself
for the name
to
right away.
Immediately say, sorry, can you tell me your name again? And in my head, I'm like, listen to their name, listen to their name, listen to their name, listen.
Fuck it up this time.
And I'll be like, okay, I heard their name. I heard their name. I heard their, like, and then I'm like, and their name.
Can't remember it. Yeah.
And I'm like, damn it. Like I try and make association, but details, I remember like you wouldn't believe. Right. So this drives my wife nuts because I will bump into somebody at like the pharmacy and, and I'll be like, hey, I bumped into someone, like, and she'll be like, who was it? I could tell you where they went to college. I could tell you what their job is. I could tell you what their dog like looks like. I can tell, like, I'll be like, oh, the person who like went to MIT, but then worked for here and then went to that. And then like, this is that. No, last year, I think they got stuck in like Cancun on, and she's like, but you don't remember their name. And I'm like, right. And like, and it's nuts because a name doesn't have anything you can naturally attach to. Right. The detail, the context, you can picture it. You can. So, and then the one my kids tease me about or joke about is fridge blindness. I can open the fridge and just can't find something. There have been times where like one of my kids will be like, oh, can you get me some lemonade or can you get me the milk?
I just thought it was because I was a guy. That's what I've always heard all my entire life.
I will open the fridge and I'm like, I know it's here.
Yeah.
I know it's here. And like my daughter once like walked up to me next to the fridge, kind of gave me this look like with a furrowed brow, reached in front of me, took the milk out of the door and was like, right here. And I was like, in my mind, I'm like, oh, you did a magic trick.
Like what's that saying? If it was a snake, it would bitten you, right? Like I don't know how many times I've heard that in my life. Yeah.
Yep. But or mail piles. I have mail piles everywhere.
Oh yeah.
I've got them separated specifically, but they're piles of mail in my own.
Same.
They're organized.
It's hilarious
in my own way. I'm never gonna fucking open them though.
Totally.
I'm an organized mess is what I am. An organized mess.
Yeah. I know where they all are. Right. Like even to the point of like, again, if I take out tools, there are times where I will tell myself, put the screwdriver back where it goes. And then my brain is like, or just leave it here on the countertop and put it later.
I might need it later. And it's really
I might need it.
Easy for me to remember. That is right here.
Yep. And then I walk by it and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to open the drawer right beneath it and like slide it and like just dump it in there. Yeah. And then when I need my screwdriver, I go to where it should be. It's not there. And then I can mentally go through, well, when did I use it last? What was it for? And I almost like a squirrel, I'm like, I know where I tend to drop things. So I just go to my usual spots and I'm like, yeah, I found it. And I'm like, I should really have it. Drawers. My drawers are either painfully organized or it's basically a junk drawer. There's like nothing in between. It's like either an OCD level organized drawer or you might as well just throw everything in and it doesn't have a spot.
Yeah. Mine are all junk drawers. That's for sure.
Yep. And
I'm looking right now at my laptop and everything, my cable.
I have piles everywhere. And when my husband puts things away, I get super fucking mad because I'm like, I'll never remember where that is again. Please do not put anything away. I have to see it. If I don't see it, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's painfully real. It's like
there's probably a lot of light bulbs going on with all of our listeners.
At the Airbnb here, Matt.
We're connecting some dots here for you guys.
This Airbnb, this little bar area is killing my husband because everything's out. Like I have a pile of books. I have my vitamins. Like nothing is put away.
And I'm about to come and probably make it worse for a few days.
You'll see, Matt. You're going to be like, yep, you're exactly right. I have got to see it all.
That's why I'm like folding laundry. Like I fold my laundry and then it stays on my bed and I'll move it from my bed to my dresser and I'll move it back and forth, but I never put it away. It's the weirdest fucking thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, I'm putting
I
it
saw
on
somebody
my dresser,
online
put it in the drawer.
Describe that as a floor drobe.
Floor drobe.
Floor drobe.
Which I loved because it's so true, right? If something's clean, it goes in the drawer. If I wear it once for 20 minutes and I'm like, well, it's clean, but like, it's not like full clean. Where does it go? Well, that's just going to go on top of my dresser. Mm-hmm. like, not back in the drawer folded because that wouldn't make sense. So it's just such a funny pattern. And the mail piles, that cracks me up because it's not hard. This is not a difficult task, but I will get a piece of mail not opened. I know exactly what it is. I won't open it. I put it in the zone, like, remember to do this later.
Which you never do.
Right. Or you'll do it when you get a second email and you're like, shit. You know, or you get a second letter and you're like, okay,
that just happened with us last night. Somebody from our team emailed us to remind us about something. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I need to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, with the name thing, that's in a therapy setting, it's funny because I give people nicknames. So I will be like, there are patients of mine I've been seeing for years, and collectively we will call somebody in their family or their life by some sort of nickname. So like I worked with somebody for a while, couldn't remember the name of this guy for the life of me that she worked with, but we called him Headphones because she once told me that she really liked that, like when he didn't want to interact with people, he would put headphones on. And so, but that's it. So he now has a nickname. I can remember the detail. I remember everything about who he is, but I call him Headphones. And like, she would call him Headphones. And then she would basically be like, oh, right. When I talk about him to like my friends, we now call him Headphones. And I'm like, I couldn't tell you his name to this date. Like,
I feel you there. There's people I don't know that I've known for 20 years probably. And I just know them as a nickname from a party or something.
Yeah. When I was in grad school, there was one of my professors. She was in her early 90s and just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And every time she gave a lecture, she would tell the same joke on purpose, not like she had. And she would start off by telling this joke, and I'm likely not going to do it justice, but she would say, these two women were in a retirement home, and every single day they had lunch together and played cards for years. And 4 years into doing this, every single day, one woman looked at the other and said, I've been trying to get up the courage to ask you a question. And I think I finally did. And the woman says, ask me anything. And she says, what's your name? And the woman looks at her and goes, how soon do you need to know? Which I loved. And basically she would tell that joke and say, listen, if you ask me a question and I can't remember, I'm going to write it down and I will call you back. And she had research assistants that would, like, if you asked a question, I remember I asked a question once and she went, and she would just go, how soon do you need to know? Mm-hmm. And I would like, and they would come right over, they would write down the question and they would take your name and phone number. And she would call, she called me once on a Saturday to like talk about like, just like, I looked it up because I couldn't remember. And like, and we talked on the phone for like 45 minutes. And I was like, this is amazing. God. Like, yeah. Oh, she was something else. She was, one of my dissertation advisor used to say that she will forget more in a day than most of us will know in a lifetime. Like she was brilliant and also sassy. Like she was a riot, but sorry. See, this is where I've managed to get completely off topic.
I don't even see
it seems natural to me. What is the fucking natural progression of the conversation? So
I'm telling you, people are going to listen to this and be like,
a topic. Okay, this is ADHD with Beth, Matt, and Josh.
Right. Once we throw it out there that you were coming on, Josh, we started. I know I did. I'm sure Beth did too. Started getting a lot of messages how excited people were for us to talk about this specifically. So yeah, for sure.
Well, and so I'm curious from you guys as we're just bantering about all this stuff.
Yeah.
Given that you're headed into that conversation, where I'm always a little fascinated when people hear something that other people experience and they're like, oh, I didn't know. I think it's incredibly validating.
It is.
And my hope is that in this conversation, there are going to be a bunch of people listening and going, what is going on?
Exactly.
But so I know, so Matt, you're meeting with somebody
in like 2 weeks. Yeah.
And is it for an assessment or just like an initial conversation to
I've already had my initial
like...
conversation. So I worked with, I'm not worked with, but there's this, my girlfriend referred me to this therapy place. Because I was looking for somebody in person. I tried virtual, wasn't for me. So I needed somebody in person. So I did that, started talking with them. And so I did my initial assessment conversations with them. And they then will refer you to one of their psychiatrists if they feel like you can benefit from it, essentially. So I did the due process there. It didn't take too long. It's been a couple months, but the wait, I mean, I was actually expecting, once they said yeah to the psychiatrist, I was expecting to wait for months, but I was actually only a couple of weeks I was able to get in. So that was cool.
Great. So it'll be interesting to see what they say. And honestly, like, I don't mean to sound funny about it, but like, congrats on getting to that place.
For sure,
because it takes a little bit.
It too. Like, I mean, it's insane to me. Like, this is like a whole new world for me. These last couple of, honestly, this last 6 to 9 months is really when everything's been kind of, my eyes have been opening to it. It helps that I'm dating a therapist who has ADHD and specializes in this shit too. And she's constantly telling me, Matt, you have ADHD. You need to see, go talk to somebody. It'll help you. Like this, like those things you're doing, those aren't what normal people do. So she does the same shit, right? So.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Because sometimes it takes somebody else just being like, hey, you don't have to fight against that.
Right.
And not everybody needs an actual medication intervention, but even just being able to say, validating that it's like, yeah, this is real and this is something that you're dealing with. And it's okay to have strategies to work around it. And so not everybody needs to go right in that direction. But sometimes what happens for a lot of people is they just get down on themselves. They start to basically say, what's wrong with me? Like, how come I can't do this?
I went through that during all this. I was in a dark place there for a couple of months, fall, winter time. Honestly, I mean, anybody listening would know because we've talked about it here. Beth knows. I mean, I was struggling fucking hard.
Yeah, because there's this internal feeling of like, I'm watching other people do it.
Yeah.
And I can't do it. So what's wrong? Why am I not? And I mean, I guess I would argue in every setting, in fitness, nutrition, in health, in life, in behavior change, all of it, right? Like, it kind of, anger is not a great motivator. Like self-anger, self-hatred, kind of saying like beating yourself. Same thing with like diet, exercise. When people say, how come I can't do that? Why can't? Right. You can't. It actually gets you further.
I even was saying, like, why is this happening? Like, why am I this way? I literally texted that to Sarah one day. I'm like, why am I this way? Like, I don't want to be this way. And she's like, stop it. And I know better, right? I teach this shit. I coach this shit, but I still struggle with it too.
Oh yeah.
Well, the stuff that I think there's things that we can all do professionally or that just don't apply to yourself or your own life. Like, there are certain things that I work with and deal with professionally that I have infinite patience for. But when I see it in my personal life or a friend or one of my kids, I'm like, it makes me immediately furious. And I'm like, well, what the, like, I have this crazy amount of tolerance for it in one setting, and in another setting, no. Or I can help coach people or help people get over their own resistance to trying a new intervention or trying a new, but then I'm not doing it myself because I think we hold ourselves to a different standard. It's this like, no. We give other people all this leeway, all this room to say like, it's okay. It's okay that you need the help, you need the support. And then you turn to yourself and say, I mean, I should be able to do it myself. What? All day long, I'm telling people that that's okay. And then you beat yourself up. And it's interesting. It's not one or the other. I think that it's not medication or no medication. It's not like, sometimes it's just being able to say, okay, right. Like, I process differently. What motivates me is different. And there's nothing wrong with that unless you deny it and you try and do things the way everybody else says, well, this works for everybody. Well, no, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to work for and there's nothing wrong if you need a different approach or a different way. And I mean, listen, like, for some people, it might be a matter of saying, right, like, to do this put together cookie cutter 9 to 5 school or work. Well, with how my brain works and what's expected of that schedule, that doesn't match up. So for some people to be able to fit into that, they do need some of that additional support or assistance. Or if they had the option to say, well, I need a non-traditional setup, I need a different option, they might not need that intervention. Like, I know some people who have benefited a huge amount post-pandemic with how much you can now do by telehealth, or not telehealth, sorry, but like, because people can say, oh, well, now that I'm working from home, or I can work the hours I need. So in the middle of the day, if you have ADHD and you're like, hey, I'm cooked right now and I need to do something for 2 hours, that's not, if that's now an option and you could just work an hour later, or you can say, oh, I'm going to send emails at 8:00 at night because that's when my brain is ready for it. Then that's amazing. But it's giving yourself permission to say, right, that's not because I'm doing something wrong. It's because
You're
that's what I need.
with yourself instead of against
yourself.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Absolutely.
Stop fighting it. Yeah. I'm just.
Yes, Matt.
Make it easier. Yeah, for sure. Trust me. I've learned this, and it's definitely making a big difference. Definitely making a big difference.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I just put up something recently because like after I made that video, I was like, I talk to people constantly about the importance of sleep, right? With the battery, that's our primary recharge. And if you don't sleep enough, you're not waking up at a full charge. And now all of a sudden you're budgeting your day and you're like, uh-oh, how do I get everything done when I don't have the battery?
Yeah.
So I talk to people about the importance of sleep constantly. And I battle with myself to go to sleep.
Aren't you doing like a challenge with yourself? Well, let's talk about that. You're trying to get to bed before midnight.
That was my goal. So the way that went is I was like, okay, I need to be able to fix this. Sleep is so important. And typically the last hour or so before I go to bed, I'm not doing anything productive. If I was doing something really productive, maybe I'd feel differently. But very often I wrap up what I'm going to do. And then I'm just like, I just kill time. And so I started by being like, I got to fix this. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to set a goal and see if for an entire year, I can make sure I go to bed before midnight. I immediately was like, well, that's stupid. Like a year? Like,
holy shit. That's a commitment.
Right. I love it.
Not
That's response. And the look on her face.
If you guys put up any part of this video, Beth's face when I said that, she was like, whoa. Like almost like, I don't want to interrupt you, but that's a terrible decision.
Right.
Like,
that's exactly what she was thinking, wasn't it, Beth?
A fucking expectation.
Right. So, but this is what I think we all do to ourselves, right? So I immediately was like, what am I, nuts? I don't think I've put that together for a week. And I was like, and I'm jumping to a year? Like, so I immediately was like, okay, let me revise it. And I was like, all right. Initially, I was like, let me see if I can do it for a week.
Use the smart.
And then I was like, well, if I'm going to invite other people into it, let me see if I can go for a month. So that way I'll give other people time to come in. And it's so funny because I decided this on like last week on Wednesday. Wednesday night, Thursday night, no problem. Got to bed before midnight. And I was like, Friday is when I shared it publicly, or I put up. And it was such an interesting thing, right? We always learn about ourselves. The second I put it up publicly, Friday night was so much harder for me to go to bed before midnight than either the 2 nights before that, because now I felt responsible. I felt accountable. I was like, because I've said it, I'm like, oh my God, like this is my brain. I'm the one that set the goal. It's something I want. It's not. And I multiple times I was like, should I set it at 11 p.m.? And I was like, no, again, I will fail. Like I will not do it. And I was like, but the second I went to bed, I like shut everything down at midnight. It was like 11:59. I was like, beat the clock. And I'm like, unbelievable. Like, and I was like, part of it was that it was the weekend, but it's unreal because just in the like 5-6 days I've done it, I'm like, right, it's easier for me to get up in the morning, because my battery is a little bit more charged. I don't ever like to say I have like bad headaches, but like I get pretty consistent headaches. I've had fewer headaches because I'm sleeping. Like, and I'm like, I know all the benefits. I know that and yet I have no doubt I'm going to mess it up. And I am working so hard to be like, hey, the second I mess it up, I need to make sure to be nice to myself. I need to make sure to be like, yeah, of course there are going to be nights where I don't do it. But it kind of surprised me. And the reason that I put it out there is I was like, there's got to be other people that are just trying to figure out like subtle things that you're like, I just want to change this little thing.
Yeah.
And I can't get going. And so I was like, you know what? Like I'll put up my whole experience and I'll share it. And so I kind of started a group because I was like, hey, anybody who wants to change anything, I don't even care what it is. It doesn't have to be food related. It doesn't matter. Like whatever you're trying to change, sometimes just having someplace you can go to say, the second I said I'm going to start, my initial response was resistance.
I might have to join your group.
Yeah.
Bring it on.
The Facebook group, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a Facebook group that.
What's the name of it so people can join if they want to on the podcast?
Wonderful question. Let me make sure I actually remember the name of my own group.
Perfect.
Meanwhile, that's one of those things that, so I mean, the Facebook page is the same as my Instagram. It's drj.smith. Mm-hmm. The group itself is Talk It Out with Dr. Josh. So Talk It Out with, or W with a slash, and then dr.j. So Talk It Out with drj. Like
we'll be sure to link it so that people can get it easily.
Yeah.
But anybody's welcome. I made the group a private group just so it wasn't. I want people, like anybody who wants in. Like I want them to have access, but I want people to be able to, I want it to be something that people consciously are kind of saying like, yeah, that's what I want to be involved in. I'm going to post all of it still on the Facebook page itself, but and really truthfully, my hope is to kind of put that together and start having it just be kind of more of a support community. I mean, like I want that to be something that persists where anybody can kind of come in and just know that they have someplace that they can put things out there and run it by people and who just are all kind of working on the like, we're trying to better ourselves in some way, shape, or form. And it's nice to have some support.
Absolutely. We can't talk enough about getting support at home with online. There's so many avenues for it. So I love that you're doing that. That's awesome.
Positive stuff too. It's like, just like I know we talk there's so much out there about some of the negatives about social media.
Yeah.
And you can definitely go in either direction. And some of the negatives will kind of push you towards feeling worse about yourself. But there's also all of this stuff out there that is so inspiring and so like my Instagram feed is either funny, really interesting, or or great ideas, and it's awesome to kind of see people put stuff up that you're just like, damn, I didn't think about it that way. Or you put it in a way that I know it, but that kind of hit home.
Mm-hmm. Social media is one of those things. It's like, it is what you make of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be curious to hear how that goes. And my only little 2 cents there is be patient, because the first thing they have to figure out is the right medication. And then the second thing they figure out is the dosage.
Right.
And I remember talking to a physician who said with ADHD meds, they typically start with stimulants, and there's kind of 3 main ones they start with. And this particular doctor said that most people will figure out a medication that works for them within the first 2.
Oh,
okay.
Wow.
Cool.
And they all have very similar active ingredients.
Yeah. And we'll be talking about it here on the show too, I'm sure. So
yeah.
Anytime. No, it's so it's interesting. And I should probably keep putting up random things anytime I realize when you were talking about the plane and reading, I love being on an airplane.
Mm-hmm.
I actually find it very relaxing because I can't do anything.
You're forced. I don't be bored.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It reduces the number of variables. So when I'm at home, I see it. I see all the things I have to do. I see, I should do this. I should do that. When we go on vacation, I joke with my wife that I'm like, hey, if somebody left something in the room and they need something, let me go get it. Let me do it. Because sometimes she'll be like, well, I feel bad. You just went up to the room to get something. And I'm like, no. I actually find that relaxing. Having a task, having for her, she's like, hey, I'd love to just sit and relax or read and I'm like, yeah, after 10 minutes, I'm like, so what should I do now? Mm-hmm. And so we joke about the fact that I'm constantly looking for something, but so I mean, I don't want to go too far in other directions, but
we could talk for hours about this.
We could
for reals.
I love the slide deck thing too. That's such a great example.
The slide deck?
The slide decks in the presentation. I love it. Because it's such an honest example of something you're totally excited for, and you crushed it, and you likely had in your head exactly what you wanted to do. But the mental assignment of but put it down. get in on paper.
It's great up here. I know it. I just,
yeah,
I can't
like,
just, everybody can just read my mind.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God.
We can't do that yet.
Yeah. I had to mind fuck my own self. Like I know myself so well now that I know that I have to do these things or else I will fucking wait to the last minute and stress out. Well, I still did, but at least
You're gonna wait till the last minute per se though.
No, because I
Because
knew
of your coach and everything.
Yeah, I had a coach and I had someone to hold myself accountable. That was like I kind of did these things because I know myself.
Mm-hmm,
I mean, I'm 51 at this point.
Go.
I know how I work. It's like, okay, for me to actually get this done and succeed, I have to give other people deadlines they have to give to me. So I actually
real deadlines.
Yeah, like real ones. Like this is someone I'm paying. She's counting on me. She's telling me you have to have this in or work on this and let me know when you're ready. And like, that doesn't work for me. I have to tell you that I have it done so you can set an appointment. So I need a deadline.
Awesome, no, but I don't know. I think that's amazing because what that says is that you've struggled through it. You've been through it. And you got to a point where you went, you know what? Like whatever the normal preset regular parameters aren't working. And you took it upon yourself to say, right, I need a partner, right? I need a coach. I need somebody who's going to help me in that area create the framework that sets me up for success.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing because if we naturally tell ourselves, well, if I need that, then it is admitting a deficit. It's admitting a problem. Well, then already there's resistance because it's funny. I just was talking about this earlier, but that first phase of being able to admit it to yourself is that if you can't admit to yourself that there's a behavior or something that you would like to change, if you're embarrassed by it, if you have shame about it, if you can't even talk to yourself about it, it's really hard to change that pattern. Because whatever it is, if like you're a natural people pleaser and you're like, I need to start saying no to more things. Well, but if what happens is you go, no, it's something I need to work on. And like, it's not as bad as it used to be. And I'm really making some progress. It's not terrible. Okay. Then you're already kind of telling yourself it's not really a big problem.
That need to is
right.
That's something I've been working on correcting myself, actually. And the way I'm kind of reframing that is instead of I need to, it's like, well, it would be good for me if I did this. It would be best for me if I did this. Like this would help me feel better, right? Not I need to go on a walk. No, going on a walk is going to help me feel better. I know this.
Right.
Because the resistance thing. And then it just sounds like a fucking chore.
Right.
Well, and I also think that's the challenge with like, if you really have to know yourself and be honest with yourself to figure out what path is going to be most effective. If you see something and people are like, this is the way to do it, then it's hit or miss. If it happens to be that one system that everybody says is perfect, if that meets your natural style, it'll work. But if it doesn't, it's not going to happen. And so it takes trial and error to be able to say like, right. But if you can't give that initial, like I was talking to a friend of mine who one of he and his wife's constant argument is he gets hangry, right? I mean, when he gets hungry and he's grumpy, it drives his wife nuts that she'll basically say, hey, don't be grumpy, go have something to eat. Well, he's already grumpy, so it pisses him off even more. And then he wants to be like, you go get something to eat. It's like, what does that even mean?
Right.
Your face.
Right.
You're stupid. Your face is stupid.
Your face. You're like you do it. Yeah. Well, wait, what? What are we?
Well, I'm the one that's hungry.
Face. Right. And what he was saying in some ways is that like it bothers him that when he's hungry or low blood sugar, he gets cranky. He doesn't like it. So because he's almost ashamed by like, well, when I'm hungry, I'm more likely to snap at my kids or I'm more likely to snap. Like he wants to just will it to be gone and be like, you know what? I'm going to stop doing that. Well, okay, good luck. Like when have we ever willed ourselves to just do something differently? Right? Like
willpower.
Right. That would be like, can you imagine if somebody said like, oh, like I'm an anxious flyer. And it's like, well, have you considered getting on a plane and not being anxious?
Just don't be anxious.
Like, right. It's like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. Thanks.
Yeah.
Like what would that look like? I listened to a meditation once that was like, it was like breathe in strength and like breathe out your worries. And I'm like, what does that mean? Like,
Shut the fuck
breathe
up.
out your worries. Like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like, oh, I didn't realize that. Like, oh, I'm about to get on the plane. Oh shit, I almost forgot. Now I'm good. Like, what? Like,
that's why I like Brian the yogi that swears.
Yes.
It's like breathe in and breathe your fucks in, breathe your fucks out.
Isn't he the best?
So funny. And I don't know if I've said to you guys, like years ago, I heard like an honest meditation, and I've made a few of them now. Like the first one I ever made. Yeah, the first one I ever made was called "Some Days Suck and Some People Are Assholes," and like but it's because I heard so many of these meditations where I'm like, breathe out your worries. Like but so the problem for my friend is like, it's taken him a little while. And what I was saying to him, you can't just admit to yourself, like, yeah, when I'm hungry, I'm a bear. When I'm hungry, I get mad. I don't like it. But if you can't even admit it to yourself, then when his wife says like, hey, why don't you have something to eat? He's like, right, your face. Right. Which, by the way, I'm now going to end up using that all the time. And people are talking about your face. Like, but like, he has to be able to admit it to himself. That's the first step, is being like, huh, okay. Like, and no judgment, no giving yourself grief. It's saying like, oh, okay. Like, I kind of wish that wasn't the case, but it is.
It's like that radical acceptance. Right. In a way.
Absolutely. And I think,
and now maybe not so, because like you can change that by eating, right? You can't just say
yes.
You can accept that I just get this way when I'm hungry, or like you can change that by fucking eating though. So that's not radical acceptance, actually.
Well, it's the acceptance component is that, like, I think unfortunately when we get into the notion of acceptance, the reason there's resistance to it is because I think a lot of us internalize acceptance as I have to accept that this is the truth forever. I have to accept that this is, which is scary, right? I mean, in the chronic pain setting, or not any chronic illness for that matter.
Yeah.
When people are like, well, I have to accept that right now, this is difficult. When people say I have to accept it, what they hear is I have to accept it forever. I have to accept that this is my reality forever. No, you don't. You have to accept that this is your reality right now, today, this week, this month, right? Like, so if I just had a knee replacement, I don't have to accept that these limitations are forever. I have to accept that it's a reality right now. So if I'm planning a trip this weekend, well, the brain goes, well, I don't want to be limited by it. And I don't want to accept it because that feels awful. If I make accommodations, if I make changes, you're not accepting a forever reality, but you have to be able to accept that it's a right now reality.
Yeah.
And it's not easy to say like, right, I can't start making accommodations if I feel like making accommodations means admitting failure or admitting deficit, right? So my friend, he gets angry when he's hungry. If he's able to say, right, I need to accept it. I need to accept it for whatever reason, like whether it's learned, whether it's biochemical, whether it's blood sugar, whatever. If I can't just say like, right, if I don't eat consistently and I don't eat regularly, it impacts my mood. The second he's able to say, all right, I'm more sensitive to that. Whenever I tell him I haven't eaten, when I'm like, it's 3:00, I haven't eaten anything. He's like, what? Because he's like, at this point, I will have had like 2 actual meals and likely 2 snacks. And if I don't, I'm going to have to leave work. And I'm like, right. But when I tell him that, his initial response is, see, Josh can skip a whole meal and not even be in a bad mood.
So there's that like shame in a way.
Right. But that feeds that shame.
Yeah.
But what does he have to be ashamed of?
Right.
Like, honestly, in my mind, if either one of us is going to be ashamed, it's me. I'm like, you're doing something healthy. I'm doing something completely insane that I can't control.
Yeah.
Right. Like, but it's all part of like being able to really just be honest. And Yep.
For sure. Well, holy shit. Like time has flown. It's
holy shit,
late.
7:40. Dang.
Yeah, it is. I think
blindness.
This is time blindness. Yeah. We need to do this again, I think. There's so many things I want to talk about. I know, right? I need to talk to lifestyle stuff for ADHD. I think that'd be interesting to get your perspective on that. And then what I want to talk about too is how ADHD can present itself with our fitness and stuff too, because I'm sure there's some correlation there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would also put in there.
Continued.
To be continued. We'll do
TBC.
a part 2 of this conversation and a third time with Dr. Josh Smith. Look at that.
Yeah.
I will come back anytime you guys will have. I always love catching up with you guys.
It's great.
Let everyone know where they can find you on the old web.
So Instagram is DRJ Smith. So it's DRJ.Smith. And the same is true on Facebook. I use the same name for that page. And then you should be able to see the group, I think, linked through that. But if not, it's the group is Talk It Out with, but the W/ and then Dr. J. But yeah, Instagram's probably the kind of the quickest, easiest way. So that's same. Cool. DRJ.Smith. Should probably come up with a easier. You guys are the best. It's always
you're the best.
And we appreciate you, man.
And congrats on the presentation. My goal is this summer to see if I can make it up to Maine for one of your joint hikes. See if I can.
Yeah, we're probably going to
plan one actually.
Yeah.
So we'll connect with you to see when you could do it.
Yes.
Oh, that would be amazing.
That'd be awesome.
Fuck yeah. Cool, man.
All right, you guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye. Have a good one.
Hope you enjoyed this episode, so why not share with a friend who needs to hear it? Send us a DM on Instagram or email us at cutthecrappod@gmail.com and join our Patreon at patreon.com/cutthecrappodcast. As always, we appreciate you and thanks for being here.